All right, so everybody, thanks so much for listening to us. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Amazon, or one of the other podcasting sites, YouTube, please like, subscribe, share. Definitely get this out to as many people as possible. If you are listening to us on one of the radio stations, we really appreciate that. Obviously, you can't like or share through the radio, but we hope that you tell your friends and your family members to keep listening. We're going to start the show off with somebody that I've read her story. She's got so many things, and we're going to definitely have her on again at the end of March. So this will not be the last time I speak with Valerie. Again, this is Valerie Fitzgerald. She's got so much about her. She was a single mother who built $1 million real estate business and also her own charity foundation. We're going to talk about a little bit about real estate, a little bit about her life story, and like I said, we'll have her on again because there's so much to really divulge into about her life story in general. So, Valerie, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks so much for having me. This will be fun.
All right. So, Valerie, let's kick this off with the first question. And even before I get into that, I do want to say Valerie does have a book out. It's called Heart and Sold. You can check that out on Amazon or in your local bookstores. She does have a podcast, which we'll talk about a little later on in the interview. It's called Real Estate, Real Laughs. So check that out on your podcasting sites too. So as we get into the interview, Valerie, what made you want to get into a career in real estate?
Well, it really kind of chose me. I always say that real estate chose me because I had started out with a baby I was raising alone, and I had to figure out a career, and I had no money and no help, and I just moved from actually from New York to Los Angeles, and I'd actually moved to Los Angeles to work for a cosmetic company that they went private about 4 months after I arrived, so I had no job. So I had to figure out something. A friend of mine said, so why don't you go into real estate? And I was, well, I haven't lived here in over 10 years. I don't know anybody anymore. I don't know anything about business. And I had no money. So I heard my next door neighbor's baby crying. And I contacted her and see if we started to share hours so that I could go to real estate school at night and she'd watch my baby. So I kind of raised my baby and built $1 billion business, raising this baby at the same time.
Incredible. And I think people need to learn more about your story, and we'll learn some more in this interview. I want to go into this. So, obviously it's a hot market right now, whatever state you're in, pretty much. With that said, there's so many real estate agents out there. How does a person that's looking to either sell or buy a house really find that right real estate agent to fit?
You're right, because last I heard, I think there's a 1.6 million agents in the U.S. today, and I think there's only about 1 million houses for sale across the country. So it's a very competitive kind of thing. But I think that, first of all, I tell that my team, the people that are on my team, that you have to be knowledgeable. The most important thing, because the customer comes to you usually knowledgeable. They already have seen properties. They know a lot about the market already. They really know things. If you don't offer something that's relevant, relevance a really important word, relevant to their lifestyle, relevant questions, relevant things that you can help resolve or solve a problem that they may have in a stumble block in finding a home, then somebody else will. So you have to know the market, you have to know, and you have to ask questions.
I have a question, and this is an audience question, but since we're speaking about real estate agents and the market in general, one of the guys I work with, he just bought a house recently within the past 2 months over in Boston, Massachusetts, and he's a financial planner. His house was about 700 some odd $1,000. Obviously, Boston is an expensive market. When he was buying this, they told him if he went and got the house all checked out, that they were going to, cut it. And then once he bought the house, there was so much work. He already put in over 100 grand in, and he's going to have to put in a lot more because there was an issue with the roof and mold in the house. What is going on with that? How is that even going on right now where there's no real checks and balances on these houses? It's just this market is so hot that people say, all right, if you want this house checked out, screw you. We'll move on to the next person.
Yeah, it's a hustle. I mean, you do get hustled by people that, by agents that will tell you that if you don't take it as it is, then too
Right.
bad, somebody else will, or there's 20 people behind you, and and there happens to be a lot of money out in the market right now. A lot of people, interest rates are still fair, but there's a lot of money in the market. But I think it's really important that when you're negotiating with someone, that you do check out the house, that you do ask for a contingency so that you can have 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, some sort of time frame to look at. And if someone won't let you do that, buyer beware, don't buy that house, because we're all looking, when everyone's looking when they're buying a home, into how much money they can afford, for a payment, and then these unexpected repairs that come down the road can be so costly that they're not affordable. So I think it's really, really important to know what you're doing and be prepared up front, or before you make an offer. Say to the agent, hey, I want to bring my inspector over tomorrow for the day, for 3 hours, and we're going to check out the house. Usually you can do that before you make an offer, because they'll give you offer deadlines. Okay, the offer's due in 3 days at 5 o'clock. You'll say, great, okay, I'd like to bring my inspector over tomorrow, for an hour to check out the house. You have to do so. You have to know something about the property before you buy it.
You spoke about a lot of money in the market. I'm thinking, and I'm hearing this from a lot of people as a person that's involved in investments in general, is the cryptocurrency and how much crypto is in the market. These guys are really buying this market, and they're just crushing people that, just buying, maybe they have old money, or they just millionaires in general. The crypto people are coming in and crushing it.
They are. There's no doubt about it. That is at the top of my list to learn about. I think it's really important to be aware of the cryptocurrencies and how they're done. In other words, so if you're buying with crypto, will the seller accept crypto? Or do they want it converted at the close of your transaction? Or will they take a part in crypto and part in cash? I mean, there can be no financing when you're doing crypto. But these new crypto millionaires, they're at 26. We've seen them at 24, 25, 26. A guy flew in on his private jet who's 27 from New York over the weekend to spend $100 million here, because it's money that he just made in the last year and a half. So he's like, they're going at it. They're 5 million, 10 million. There's some very big young buyers from the cryptocurrency world.
What do you think 2022 is going to be like as far as that real estate market? Is it still going to be that seller's market for a while to come?
Yes, I believe it is. There's right now, the last 5 deals that I've been involved with had more than 20 buyers on them. And we're not talking about low price ranges.
Right.
So I think you're going to see 2 or 3 interest rate hikes, but they're not going to be major this year. I think you're going to see a low inventory is what drives it. People go, well, if I sell, where am I going to go? So it's the low inventory that's making the market soar and be so tight and competitive. So what's going to open up an inventory? Usually, or change a market. So you have to have a huge number of homes for sale that aren't selling in order to change the market and a market price. So for prices to change. And the real estate, the interest rates might affect it in some markets somewhat, because it'll affect your down payment and what you can afford to pay every month. But overall, no, I think it's going to be a seller's market for the rest of the year.
We've had economists on here. They're talking about this crash. They're talking about those interest rates. You don't agree with that? Okay.
No,
fair enough.
Because there's no indicator of what would contribute to a crash. What has been the past? If you look at the past, it was the mortgage-backed securities. It was, in 2006 and 2000. So you have to look at the reasons. What would be the underlying reason to cause that? And there isn't an economic one.
Let's go into these homes that you've sold. I was told you have many funny stories about people that you've sold houses to, people that have bought houses from you, all these celebrities and millionaires. If you could kind of tell the audience a little bit about maybe some of these people, even if you don't want to say names, some of these stories about some of these celebrities and millionaires that you've sold to, as far as that goes.
So our podcast is called Real Estate Real Laughs, and I co-host it with my friend. And we came up with the idea because we'd have lunch and we'd just laugh our heads off at some of the craziest stories. Because as we know, but we manage a lot of things as real estate agents behind the scenes, and some of them are pretty crazy and pretty wild. So I can tell you a couple of definite stories that we have on our show. And most of the time our show doesn't talk about addresses or names, but a couple of times we can, because like Michael Jackson, I had shown houses to. I have a wonderful story about Michael. So Michael would go out to look at houses, and he had this beat up old VW van, and he had this kind of hippie-ish lady who would drive it. You'd never in a million years think that he's inside that van. So he would call me from the car and he'd say, Valerie, I like that house. Let's stop at this house. And I said, okay, Michael. He goes, I'd like to see that house. It was a big house, big house, gated and all that. And so I called the agent, and he said, forget it, Valerie. There's a Saudi family renting it for $150,000 a month. There's no way you're going to get in for the next couple of months. Just forget it. So I said, Michael, we can't get in. It's a Saudi family there. They're paying a lot of money. They're there for the summer. We have to wait a couple of months. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we go out a couple of days later, go back up, and he goes, let's drive by that pretty house I like. I want to see it again. So we pulled up. I'm in front. All of a sudden, the van doors open up. He gets out, and he's wearing a full Saudi outfit, the whole headdress, the whole thing, the glasses, the whole, I forget the technical name for it, the abaya, whatever it's called, down to the ground. He looks at a beard. He's got this big beard, and he looks Saudi, right? He rings the gate. And I'm in front of the car going, oh my God, they're going to come out and shoot us. I mean, they've guards and stuff. They're going to absolutely shoot us. And he goes into the box on the gate. He goes, hala, hala, hala. And I'm like, oh my God. I get out my car door, and I'm just watching this unfold. The gate opens up. He walks in the gown and the thing and the headdress and all that and the beard. He walks in, and the guards come out, and then the couple, or the man from the house, of course, they're in their Saudi, clothing, traditional clothing. They come out, and Michael starts to bend over, puts his hand out, and he goes, hala, hala, hala. Now I walk in, maybe I'm about 30 feet from him, and I'm thinking, oh my God, something is going to go wrong here. And he's going, and they're looking at him, because all he can say is hala, hala, right? And then he looks at me. They look at me, and I don't know what to say, because I'm standing there, and both cars, the doors are open, and the van and my car are sitting on the street in front of the gate. And all of a sudden he pulls off the beard and the headdress, and they see it's Michael Jackson. Well, they went crazy. They went absolutely crazy. The kids came out. Of course, they invite him in the house. You can see the house. So that was one of our crazier, funnier stories.
Now, what happened with you? Did you go in, or did you stay outside?
No, I mean, I walked up to the front door. I knew this house from before. Okay. And he walked in, and he was bowing all the time, and he had in his hand, he had the headdress and the beard, and it was quite the funny scene. It was quite surprising, because you didn't know they had guards there. I mean, you don't know, what could happen. And then I had another really famous rock and roll guy, and he had a house. He said, Valerie, come over, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. I want you to show you the house. So I come up to the front door. The door opens, and he's got very long hair, and it's wet, and he's shirtless. He's not very tall. Really famous guy. I walk in. As we start to walk in, I look to my right into the living room, and it's floor to ceiling cages of snakes.
Oh gosh.
And I look to the next room, and I look to the family room. It is floor to ceiling, 3 rows of cages with snakes. And I'm like, how am I going to show this house? How am I going to show this house with all these snakes in here?
Right.
He says, well, we can cover them up, or just tell them in advance that I have pets. And I go, there's a lot of pets in here. I don't know. I don't think we can do this. I think we have to have another plan. Maybe we can figure out a way to put them someplace else. He goes, but they're my pets. And I think, well, so as I turn to walk out, this little white truck pulls up, a little white truck pulls up and sits in the driveway. And as I'm walking down the path to the driveway, the guy comes out and he's got a little box of live little mice. This is his feeding time. And I'm like, God, can you imagine if I were with a buyer, if there's snakes and little mice and all this? So, we couldn't get the house on the market at the time because of all of that.
It's crazy. I'm sure you have many, many more
Oh,
stories.
I have so many funny stories. Yeah.
And people need to check out the podcast. And they can find it on Spotify and
Yes.
everywhere, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The first audience question was about Blackrock, and this person says, I'm a millennial. I make over $70,000. They're saying that they are worried, as following the news, about Blackrock buying up all these family houses all around the country, and they're trying to make this into a rental society. Have you been hearing issues like that? Are you worried about that? That people that make, middle class, that make 50 to maybe 100 some odd $1,000 may not be able to afford a lot of these houses now, especially like you said, the market is really, it's really a tough market.
Yeah, I just wrote an article for Realtor.com about the rentals and rents and the expectations and what you can do to get a rental today, because rentals are very competitive. I mean, the rental market is also very tight. Going back to your original question with Blackrock, yes, I heard that, and I heard that. It's about 3 years ago it started, because there was a plethora of homes that were just sitting there that were not rented. They couldn't sell them. They just, those communities that built 200 or 300 houses, they just couldn't sell them. So yes, they got in and they were buying them up and turning them into rental communities. Eventually they will become sales. So if you can get a lease like that, if you are middle class and you can get into a house that's under a lease like that, eventually those homes will be sold. I would say try to strike a really good rental deal, maybe apply part of your rent to an eventual purchase, and sort of approach getting into the market that way, because they're not going to stay rentals forever.
Yeah, that
and
company.
If you can't, then I would rent. I would rent something, and I would say this is the time to start saving some money towards a larger down payment.
It says, what was the toughest house you ever had to sell?
Oh God, I've had a few of them. I've had a few. It's called putting lipstick on a pig. Yeah, I've had a few. Well, the situation when there's a divorce and they're both living in the house and they won't let you in the house, and then they're fighting with each other, and or they lock a part of the house off. I mean, we deal with so many things behind the scenes that make it so difficult for us to sell houses sometimes.
So you're like the marriage counselor in those.
Right, of course. Yeah, the psychiatrist, the marriage counselor, the advisor. Sell now because it's going to go to foreclosure. Your financial advisor. Yeah, exactly.
What would you tell some of those people that just started in real estate within the past maybe year or so, that are those rookie real estate agents? Any advice for them?
Yeah, I believe that you have to start building a database, because if you don't have people to talk to, then you have no one to say, hey, I just saw this house, or this is coming on the market, or I heard this is a pocket, or I can show this lease, or this condo. So if you've got to put together the contact list so that you can email to them, you can call them, you can send them things, you can ask them questions, you can ask them if they want to refer you. You have to have a larger, as large as you possibly can. Like my list is about 52,000 people on my database, but you've got to be able to be in front of people, because it's so competitive, with relevant information. Oh, the market's doing this. I mean, if they look at my Instagram, they'll see I do market updates, I do listing updates, people want information that they would not normally know themselves.
Last two questions. Again, for people listening, this is Valerie Fitzgerald from the Valerie Fitzgerald Group. I want to go into the last two questions. We've talked about a lot of things on this podcast so far. What do you hope the viewers learn from our podcast together today, Valerie?
I want the millennials to understand that, yes, this is a tough market, and maybe they sit it out for 2 years and lease and figure out how to save some money, that it's not hopeless, and don't dive in and get over your head. I've got a guy like I'm working with today, and I'm going to tell him, because we keep pushing the price, and I'm going to tell him today that I think we should pull back and get something a little less than his expectations and not get financially over your head, because that's where it can really hurt you. So you really need to think about what you have, what you can do. Don't stretch. Don't, because there will be other opportunities, and they may not be this year, but they could be next year. And in the meantime, you could be saving some money. So I want the millennials to know that there is hope, and they will get eventually a great home for them and their family.
Again, Valerie Fitzgerald, definitely check out the book. It is Heart and Soul, the podcast, Real Estate and Real Laughs. Valerie, where can people find more about you after this interview?
My website is valeriefitzgerald.com. Real Estate Real Laughs is a website, and it's also, we're on YouTube. We have a lot of video there. My Instagram is my name, Valerie Fitzgerald. We have, I don't know, 30,000 followers there. I mean, so if you just got to put my name in there somewhere, so something about me will pop up. I have a TED Talk I did last year on resiliency. So, you know, lots of things are there, and I'm happy to address or answer any questions, or if anyone needs something.
Valerie Fitzgerald, again, valeriefitzgerald.com. Valerie, thanks so much for your time today. I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Great, Rob. Thanks for having me on today.